Hookups television show. This is Dr. Barbara Young, your host, and this is a show that features up close and personal interviews with guests from all walks of life who share their stories about unexplainable blessings, successful events, and extraordinary miracles and encounters that can only be of God's hookup. You will receive hope, enlightenment, encouragement that will feed your spirit and your soul. Now, to my guest today. Welcome, Mr. Philip Hatfield. I'm so excited to have you on the show. You see how I'm almost levitating off the chair?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Barbara.
I've become quite an admirer of yours. Your story is absolutely incredulous. Let me share a little bit about Philip Hatfield. As a teenager, he worked with his father and learned some very valuable lessons, but he was in his father's construction company. But this young man moved into the hospitality industry. And at age 24, this young man was out of control. He was with Regency Hotel Systems. And at 26, he became the youngest general manager and vice president in the history of the national hotel and hospitality industry. And then quickly, he became the vice president over 3 5-star Ramada hotels in the franchise group. But then one day in November 2008, Philip's life took a turn. So Philip, will you share with my audience today what happened that one day? A man who was on the brink of success and by age 30 would have probably been a billionaire the way he was going.
Well, let me back up a little bit and give you a little bit of the backstory to that. I met Zig Ziglar whenever I was 33 years old in 1993. And I met Zig, and the way I met him is when I was at the hotel there in Fort Worth. I was actually working for the Ramada Hotel, the Regency in Fort Worth. Well, they came in and recruited me and asked me to go to the Ramada Hotel to be the general manager. I said, well, let me look at it. Let me see the pictures. Let me go look at the hotel. She said, oh, no, don't go look at the hotel. You'll scare the people away. And this was back in 1984, 85. We didn't have no Google back then. So I looked at the pictures and I turned in my notice and I headed off to Fort Worth. And as I head to Fort Worth, I get it on the highway and I look up on the left-hand side and you see it up there. It was beautiful. Oh, Barbara, it was the hotel. It was the most beautiful hotel in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, wow.
I thought, wow, I'm going to be the general manager of that hotel. And I get off the highway, pull up my U-Haul trailer. I get up to the top of the red light. I'm sitting there waiting. I can't wait to get across the highway to get over there to get to the hotel. I'm looking how beautiful it is. I turn, I go across the highway, get to the driveway and turn right. As I turned right, I saw it all on the left-hand side. All the sleeping rooms had been burnt to the ground.
Oh my goodness.
6 weeks before I had got there was a fire while they were recruiting me. 5 people had died and 33 people were still in the hospital 6 weeks later. Oh. And I go in there and my dad was always my hero. And I called my dad. I said, Daddy, I've messed up. I've left my job and did a great job over there. I've come over here. I've got a hotel that's a mess. And my dad said, well, son, he said, pick up a book by a guy named Zig Ziglar. I said, Zig, Zag, Zag. I said, Daddy, I don't smoke that stuff. He said, no, get this book by Zig Ziglar. And I began to read the book and begin to become familiar with Zig Ziglar. Well, 10 years later, in 1993, I was at an event and I got to meet Zig. And my life totally changed then from a professional aspect as well. But then through that process, Zig kept trying to share Christ with me. I told Zig, hey, Zig, I don't need any of that garbage. I don't need that junk. I'm successful. I'm a self-made man. And finally, 5 years later, in 1998, I pulled over on the side of the road in my truck and I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And so my life began to change. But that day you're asking me about happened 10 years later. I was 39 when I accepted the Lord. 10 years later, I'm now living in Dallas, Texas. And after I got saved, my company asked me to move. They said, Philip, we want you to go to Dallas. And I told my pastor, because I didn't know much about churches, I said, well, where do I go? He said, go to this church called Prestonwood. I know the pastor. He's really good. His name is Jack Graham. I said, okay. So I get to that church and I'm walking down the hall. It's a huge church, 30,000 members. I had never seen nothing like that in my life. Our church was like 4,000 members there in Shreveport, Bossier. And I'm walking down the hall. As I'm walking down the hall, this voice come back behind me. He said, Well, what are you doing here, young man? And I'll be lo and behold, Zig Ziglar was right there behind me.
Oh my goodness.
He said, well, I teach Sunday school. This is my class right over here. Why don't you come on in over here? So begin to get to know Zig, and through that. So in that 10-year period of time of knowing Zig and accepting Christ, I got up early one Sunday morning. I was going to go to church that day, but I rode my motorcycle sometimes to church because it was an event that I wanted to go to. And it was a place here in town. Now, I call it a biker hangout, but it was actually a biker bar. You know what? I love to ride motorcycles. God saved me. I still rode motorcycles. And I still went to the bars, but I always drank my iced tea and drank my stuff and still did what I enjoyed to do, still did life. That evening, about 7 o'clock in the evening, I told the guys bye. Said, I'm heading in. I got to get ready because tomorrow morning I got to be executive. I'm a biker on the weekend, but I'm an executive on Monday morning. So I load up and I'm on my motorcycle. I'm heading back in. And Barbara, as I'm heading in, I'm driving the motorcycle. And as I go through the riding the motorcycle, I'm at the traffic light coming up on it. And all of a sudden, I look on the left, and there's a car that crosses the white line and comes back over the white line. And as a biker, you're taught to look the driver in the eye. So I turned and I looked the driver in the eye, but I couldn't see her eyes. She had been texting and driving. Her cell phone had rang. She grabbed the cell phone. She swung her head to the right, swung her hair to the left, slid the cell phone right up to her ear. She got to the red light, Barbara, and she decided to turn on a dime, try to beat the traffic across. Well, I'm in the central lane. The car in the lane beside me, it slowed down. It backed way up. I slammed on brakes, and when I did, I got hit in the back end by a big Ford F-250 pickup truck. Almost put me down, but it couldn't be down. I dropped that thing in a gear. I opened that throttle up. That Harley picked up and began to move forward, and I just hoped the girl would get off the gas, but she didn't. She floored it and tried to beat us across. And what happened, Barbara, as you know, the car hit my body with that steel frame and that hot engine between my legs. That car hit me, hit my body, and I wound up like 150 to 175 feet away from point of impact. And people ask me, they say, oh, did you feel any pain? I said, well, absolutely. I felt the most excruciating pain. They said, well, I thought that shock set in and you didn't feel pain. I said, well, where do you think that shock comes in, before you get hit or after?
Oh, wow.
So I was awake for that 5 minutes before I wound up going unconscious. And Barbara, it was the most excruciating pain in the world.
Oh.
It's indescribable. But also what's indescribable, you know, we hear about the peace of God. I'm laying there on that concrete pavement. And what happened is I broke my back and my lower back. All my ribs on the left-hand side broke. My colon inside my body and my spleen had burst. Physically, my abdomen had burst open from the lower part of my chest to the top of my navel. It had burst open. I had 27 breaks from my hip all the way down. My femur bone up here top, the bone between your knee and your hip, broke in half. When it did, it turned sideways. That bone came out the inside of my leg, and it goes up through my groin, 8 inches all the way up into my navel. Blood clot in my heart, blood clot in my lung, blood clot in my leg, laying open there, just bleeding to death on the road. And all I did, I just said, Lord, take care of my mother, take care of my father. Lord, take care of my son. I knew I was ready to go home. I was in bad pain, but Barbara, the peace that you hear about that's indescribable,
yes,
it's real.
Yes.
And you can't describe the peace I had in the midst of the turmoil and the pain. I can't begin to tell you the peace that I had in my heart.
Yes, yes, I can. Unbelievable. And he pulled, but the thing is, all of the mental, emotional, and physical pain that happened after that.
Yeah. I was in the hospital a long time, long recovery. I was almost died 7 times in the first 10 days. Matter of fact, when I was in the ambulance, the guy loaded me in the ambulance and they woke me up and they were hollering at me. It was a black gentleman and he had a crisp white shirt and he was hollering at me. He says, Mr. Hatfield, stay with me. Don't go to sleep. Stay awake. Stay awake. Don't go to sleep. He was asking me questions. He says, here, call somebody. He handed me my cell phone. You know, I was already out, and then he wakes me up, and I start trying to fiddle, and I called 3 people. I left them a message, and no one answered. Said, I had an accident. I'm going to the hospital. I told them which hospital I was going to. And the guy said, no, sir, you're going to Parkland Hospital. No, sir, you're going to Parkland. And so that was left on the recording of a couple of people that I had called. And so there I am. I had to go through that, and as I was getting done with the phone call, I'm about to go out. The guy was hollering at me, stay with me, Mr. Hatfield. Don't go to sleep. Stay with me. And then he knew I was going out. And he said, Mr. Hatfield, can I say a prayer for you? I said, please. And Barbara, I heard the most wonderful prayer in my life. And that was only 2 words. All I heard the gentleman say, he said, "Our Father in heaven." And I go, "Wow." That's all I had to hear is "Our Father in heaven." The sweetest words at that point in your life, because you know you're about to go, you're ready to go. And I don't know what he prayed. I have no idea. But that was enough prayer for me.
Praise the Lord. What a wonderful story. And Philip, it took you months to recuperate and come out of that. And
Yes.
so you know that, I mean, it's like God already knew that was going to happen. And he also knew that you were going to be here today to share this story for somebody out there who thinks they're going through something.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I want to know, how did you went through so much physical therapy and occupational therapy, because you even had to learn to speak again. Am I correct about that?
Yes. Yeah.
And you had to be able to know how to think again. So you had cognitive therapy.
Yes.
But you lost the capacity to think. Look at how incredulous God is, and reason. And here you are today, this successful protege. I like to say, call you the protege, mentored and coached like Zig Ziglar. But isn't it phenomenal that how God hooks you up in so many ways?
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar, he imparts into you a lot of information, tells you need Jesus,
Yeah.
which you eventually do, and then make that connection. And you're walking with God, and you're being faithful, going to church, got your little motorcycle, but you're going with the fellas, but you're having your iced tea,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got it going on. And
Well,
so,
and I met Zig. I was 33 years old, so we had built a friendship through all of those years.
yes,
My wife said that I became a groupie, but I didn't know Christ. So every 2, 3, 4 weeks, being an entrepreneur, I needed more encouragement because things are tough in life. They're tough in business. So I would have my administrative assistant, my secretary, call and say, "Where's Zig Ziglar? I need to go get close to him. I need to go hear him." And so they'd find him, and I'd either ride my motorcycle, I'd fly an airplane, I'd take a car, whatever I had to do to go and get by Zig and begin to get that from him. And so Zig at that point all kept saying, "You need to join me on the platform. You need to be a speaker. You need to say, oh, Zig, I don't need that. I'm already speaking on stages. I'm successful." And lo and behold, after my accident, what did I do? Is I got the privilege and the honor of going to work for Zig Ziglar Corporation as a speaker and a business coach.
well, look at the hookup. Look at the hookup.
Yeah.
Now, and I also know, Philip, which you didn't share, is that you lost a part of your leg.
Yes. Yes.
Is it below the knee?
Yeah.
So you have a prosthetic leg.
Yeah. And that's how the story, you notice in my title, it says Philip Hatfield, the Transformer. And I love the title of your show because I've been going by that ever since my accident. And on my book, Carried by Angels, you can actually see the picture there for those of you. And you see the
angels, yeah, and I'm seeing your prosthetic leg there.
And you see the quote by Zig. Can you read that quote? Zig kept telling me, he said, "Philip, when are you going to write the book? When are you going to write the book?" I said, "Zig, you know me. I can't spell." He said, "I didn't ask you to spell. I said, when you'll write the book."
Oh,
and I went home on that Monday morning, and I told my wife, it was about noontime time I got home. She looked at me and she said, "Well, when are you going to start?" And I sit there that day and just begin to start to write. But had I not gone through those tragedies, had I not gone through those things, and still today, I'm still rehabbing. Here it has been 12 years later, I still rehabilitate all the time. But had I not gone through that, I'd not have had the privilege to learn to be a real speaker, to learn to really share more hope and share more encouragement with everybody, not just the people that are with the companies I was working with.
right.
So God opened up many other doors through the tragedy of transforming. Now, and I know I'm taking all your time, but I want to tell you one story real quick.
Take your time. Go ahead.
I want to tell you how I got the name Transformer. When I finally did get back to work, I got to my office, and I didn't have a leg for a long time. I was in a wheelchair. So then I got a prosthetic leg. And so they don't teach you how to walk with them things. They show you basic stuff, but you don't really learn how to really walk. So, and you start learning to walk with a walker. So here I am walking with a walker, and I call it a hopper because you don't walk when you got one leg. You're doing more hopping. So I got my little hopper, and so I'd walk around, but I was sitting at my desk one day, and I said, I'm going to try to walk without this hopper. So I moved it to the side and I stood up from my seat. And it's like, oh, I'm standing by myself. Yay. Yay, me. I did good. And so then I took 2 or 3 steps, got by my desk. It's like, man, I'm doing this. And I walked all the way down. I got down to the doorway of my office and I looked left. I looked right. There was nobody there. It's like, I'm going to go further. So I turned right and I walked down. I go down about 30, 40 steps and I get there. I'm in the center of the atrium of the business. And all of a sudden, there's nobody there. And I look at the front door and there's one of these plate glass doors that you see in the business. You know, you see them like you go to the beauty salon or wherever, the big doors. And there was a cutest little girl. She was a little blonde-haired girl, pigtails. She was there trying to pull the door, and her brother was behind her. And I know he's her big brother because he told me later he was big brother. But he's trying to pull the door, and it was kind of heavy. So Mom and Grandma were there, and they opened the door. When they opened the door, that little blonde-headed girl, she got in. When she got in, she stopped and she looked at me. Her eyes got big as grapefruit. She got the biggest smile on her face, and she started giggling, and she ran. She'd take 3 or 4 steps. She leaped in there, and boom, she landed on the ground right in front of me. She grabbed this pole of my leg, of my prosthetic leg, began to shake it back and forth, says, Mommy, Mommy, look, Mommy, it's a transformer.
Oh, my God.
Well, that was hilarious. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I said, oh, it's all right. But at that time, her 7-year-old brother, he pulled out his little hero doll. He began to move them arms and his legs, move them back and forth. He says, he's the Terminator. But amazingly, in just a matter of minutes, God spoke through me to a little 3 or 4-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. Bad things had happened in my life. Trauma, I'm dealing with it. I'm getting over it. But all of a sudden, I looked at that. Do I want to take these bad things? Do I want them to transform my life? Do I want to get new goals, new dreams, new ambitions? Or do I want this to terminate my goals, terminate my dreams, terminate my life? You know what? Just because bad things happen, it don't mean that life ends. It means there's a new journey about to start. We don't understand. We just start taking those little bitty baby steps when we put our hopper to the side, start trying to do it by faith, little by little. And lo and behold, God opens amazing doors. All we got to do is put forth the effort.
I really appreciate that. You're saying that because truly, one of the things that I know about you is that you have established a track record of transformational leadership. And if anybody has gone through transformation, it has been you. And I love the name, The Transformer. But you also have another title, Philip, that I learned about. You call The Turnaround Guy.
Yeah. I got that many years ago in the hotel business when I took that hotel. And let me ask you, Barbara. So there was a hotel that had a fire and it just got rebuilt. Are you going to go spend the night in that hotel again? Heck no. No one's going to want to go spend the night in that hotel. And come to find out, the reason that they had hired me to do the hotel, they knew there was a fire. They never disclosed that to me. But they knew my dad was a builder and I'd been around building all my life. So they thought, here's this young man. We're going to take this guy. He can manage the hotel and help us oversee the rebuilding. There was a general contractor. I wasn't a general contractor, but I could oversee the building on the corporate level. And lo and behold, I thought I had ended my career. And as we began to rebuild the hotel, they were going to build it back and sell it because they knew no one would ever stay at a hotel like that again.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I got in there and rolled up my sleeves. I made beds with the housekeeping people. I washed dishes. Back then we had 3-piece suits. I'd take off my coat. I'd sit there in my vest and my tie, and I'd be washing dishes with my arms rolled up, whatever it was to get there and work with the people. And you know what I learned from Zig is when you begin to listen to other people, help them to find their goals and their dreams and help them to accomplish their goals, you will begin to accomplish yours.
Absolutely.
Because our goals and dreams are not what we do by ourselves. It takes all of us to do that. I couldn't have built that hotel by myself. But by rolling up my arms on my sleeves, going to work with the people, we built the hotel back where it was doing over $12 million a year back in 1984 and 85. And so begin to turn it around. And so God had just given me this gift of being able to look at businesses and turn around all kinds of businesses. And Barbara, it's simple. It goes back to people. Loving people, helping people, taking care of people. You can come in and take a business and you can work on the numbers, bring all the managers in and change all the managers and all that. You can do all of that. And yeah, you're changing the people, you're changing the company. But when you begin to change people, you really change the organization. And it'll do 100 times better with all the people there already doing what they already do. They just got to have a chance. They just have to have the opportunity to transform their lives also.
So what would you say out there to some of the viewers who are watching this show or who will later watch this show about, we're going through challenging times and a lot of people make excuses. I can't do this. I can't find employment. What would you say? I have you on solo, Philip Hatfield, because you are the transformer, you're the turnaround guy, and a turnaround guy with one leg. I love it. That little girl shaking that. I can just physically see that little girl. Oh my God, it's a transformer.
It was funny. It was funny.
That is the funniest. I hope you put that in your book.
We hear people talk about the term pivot a lot nowadays, and you hear it everywhere you turn.
Pivot.
Do it. Barbara, I did hear you.
I'm kind of tired of hearing pivot. It's like, can we find another word?
Yes, I agree. You're not that you're going to pivot. You've got to sit down and you've got to make a new goals plan. And a lot of times people will set a goal. They just pull something out of thin air and say, oh, this is my goal. Well, you got to qualify that goal. Why do you want that goal? Is it going to benefit? How's it going to benefit your family? How's it going to benefit all the people involved? Many things to look at. So we'll make a goal, but we don't make a goal-setting plan. So we've got to sit down and make a new plan. It's just like driving down the highway. If you're driving down the highway and there's a truck in front of you, a pickup truck, and there's 3 lanes and you're in the middle lane, and all of a sudden a couch falls off of that truck in front of you. Well, you've got to do something different, don't you? You can't keep going straight or you're going to have a collision. So you've got to stop. You got to really quickly make a decision to get around that obstacle that just fell off the truck and in the road. We have to do that quickly. Sometimes we're driving down the highway and all of a sudden something happened above in front of us and we had come to a complete stop and we hit a barrier. But our goal is still over there. Where we want to go is still down the road. What we have to do is find a new way of how to reach that goal. But let's think about it. You're already on your way to that goal, right? And you hit that barrier that stops you, right? So now you make a new goal that's beyond the other goal, and you make changes on how can I still achieve that goal. And it's conscious change. It's transforming your mind, a renewing of your mind, a renewing of your heart, and a renewing of your spirit. That you take those things and begin to counsel with other people. A good friend of mine, Bob Boding, wrote a book called The Power of Who. And in that book, it says you already know everybody you need to know to be successful. Your family really wants to help you. Your friends really want to help you. They don't know how. You got to be bold enough and have courage. And they've got to look at you and know you're really trying and say, hey, Jim, I need some help. Here's what I'm trying to do. Who do you know that can benefit from what I'm doing? And make a new plan. Make a new goal and realize this. Who are the people you're going to bring along beside you? Who are the others you're going to bring in? Because we all do this together as a team.
I think that's excellent advice because, when we talk about setting a goal, but actually setting a plan, how are you going to meet that goal? I really appreciate your saying that. The other thing, sort of, Philip, came to my mind, if you'll address this, because for me, in hearing your story today, there was one thing that absolutely poised you for success, poised you and placed you in a position, and that was that decision to make God the center of your life.
Yes.
So how about speaking to somebody about that who may say, like you did, I don't know about all this stuff. I'm not religious and I don't, and now many people can't go to church. What would you say to someone out there who needs to go?
Forget religious. There is nothing religious. Religion is something that man made. God never had religion anywhere from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And you think about the Bible, it's one big story, right? It's one great big story, but in that story are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other stories. It's not anything about religion in that Bible. Everything is about a relationship with God, a relationship with others. And you know what, you and I were speakers, and we have to sign these contracts that we won't mention Jesus and we won't mention God. And so I have a way to get around that. I'm on the platform, I'm speaking to people, and I tell them, I don't care if you go to a church, synagogue, mosque, or temple. Get involved in your faith. Search for truth, because here's what I've learned. The scriptures tell me that when you search for truth, you'll find it.
Absolutely.
No matter where you're looking, but the scripture says when you're searching for truth, you'll find the truth. And doesn't God always have a way of revealing himself? Like for me, in my deepest sin, God revealed himself.
Yes. And I mean, and the reason why I wanted you to speak to this, because it was Zig Ziglar that told you, Philip, you need to meet Jesus. You need to. And so I wanted the listeners, the viewers out there to have that opportunity to know, success comes with a price. Success often comes with a price. I always say the price of me emptying out so that I can be filled and given more. So I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today, because you have shared an interesting story. And more importantly, Philip, is that you understand more than anyone I've had maybe on the show that the crisis of a change on a personal relationship, on a professional relationship, and then even the physical level. And I have a question too. Were you married at the time of the accident?
No, I was not. I had been divorced for 22 years. And I always had this little thing of trust. Because when I first said I do, the first time it's like I did. And I always had that trust barrier. And lo and behold, after I had my accident, I was a single guy, very involved. And lo and behold, I had my accident in November. And if May, while I'm still on my walker, trying to learn to walk in May, the next year I go to an event and I see this beautiful girl sitting off in the back. It's like, wow, I'm going to go meet that girl. And so I was getting ready to get up out of my chair. So as I began to try to get up out of my little chair onto my little hopper, all these other single guys, whoosh, it was like a wind that just went by. They went over there by the girl. It's like, wow, okay, let me sit back down. But then I saw an opportunity as I got to know her just a little bit. She was going to go out of town. So when she went out of town, I knew that I could text her. So I texted her while she was up in New Jersey, and she texted back. And I text her again, and she texts back. And it was ping, it was pong, it was ping, and it was pong. I kept texting, she kept texting, and she got back. And so I did get to meet her again face to face in August. And when I met her in August, we began to go out on a date, and I asked her to marry me, and we were married that evening. Now, here's the funny thing. She would have never married a guy who rode motorcycles, and who wants a guy that's got one leg and broken up and all that. But you know what, the thing that we think that a beautiful lady don't want a guy because you're all broken and tore up. Or you may be a beautiful lady or a woman that may have had an accident. You were beautiful, you have an accident, and things are happening. You have different scars. And you may think that the man don't want, but you know what? When God is in it, God will bring the right kind of person to you. But we have to be ready for when God brings that person that we're going to take care of that gift he gave us.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that, because right now there's so many people that are lonely, and you hear, going on dating sites, and because people used to, I guess, maybe meet other places. I don't know. I've been single for 5 years. My husband died 5 years ago. And I don't know anything about the dating scene, but I hear, a lot of frustrations about that. But my thought has been, and I say this publicly, God sent the man that was to be my husband and told me, that's your husband. So, and my husband, he was just a friend I met at a political campaign party, said when I walked across the room, he was kind of shook up because God spoke to him and said, that's your wife. Yeah. And so he was really, really afraid to even kind of, and somebody introduced him to me. He was really afraid and nervous and all this kind of thing. And I never thought of him as being somebody that I would be attracted to. But God put you together in the spirit. So Philip, your beautiful blonde wife saw the spirit of who Philip is. And you saw the spirit of her, and God put the two of you together. Because here you are, you had your one leg at the time, right?
Yep, I had one leg. I was still broken up. My body was still in pieces. And she said, well, I don't want to be a nurse to anybody, so I don't need a nurse. I can take care of myself. I don't need a nurse. But it's a thing that when you have God first for me and for her, she wasn't looking for a guy. She was fed up with the not real guys, the unauthentic people. And there again, it was just that thing that God did what he does. And you know what? We sing these songs in church, and we pray these prayers, and we say, Lord, take my life and have it. Lord, take me and use me. Lord, I'm yours. When you really surrender to that, we really are his. He knows it. He wants the best for us. And didn't he make Eve for Adam? Because Adam needed a helpmate. Yes. But Adam had to be ready for his helpmate. And that's what we have to do.
Well, I really want to thank you for being on the show today. You are an incredible man. I mean, and how you use your diverse experiences across the world to transform audiences. And I can see the energy with you even coming across the television screen, Philip, and how you have enthralled my listeners and viewers. I keep saying listeners because I'm on the radio so much, but my
Yeah,
viewers. But honestly, it has been a pleasure to meet you.
thank
And
you.
for my viewers out there, and this is a story that I wanted to share before we conclude the show, is that Philip was to be on a week ago, and he, in the course of all that he's doing, sort of forgot. And so I did call him. We hooked him up on the show. He was in his truck. He had a cap on, so he's trying to take the cap so I wouldn't see that he had a cap on his head. But because he said, I can do it by phone. And I said, yes, you can do it by phone. And so he's trying to do it by phone. And all of a sudden, the audio stops.
Yeah,
There we are, just about to get into his interview, and no audio. So we had to conclude the show, but we know who that was trying to prevent you from bringing this message that you brought today. So, Philip Hatfield, the transformer, I wish you all the best. And I know God will continue to bless you.
thank you so much. And thank you, Barbara. Looking forward to meeting with you again.
Yes, you will. And we're going to have to say goodbye.
All right, goodbye. Goodbye.
I'm going to see you a little later, but I want to say to all of you today, you must call your friends. You must tell them they must watch this show. If you get the link, you get it on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook Live. And many of you out there need to see this show. This is an incredible man. He's an incredible experience. And someone who was in such a tragic accident as he was, requiring hospitalization, months and months and months of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and cognitive therapy, cognitive therapy, to show you the extent of the damages done to his body, his mind, and his spirit. But look at God. Look at God and tell me God is not in the hookup business. Yes, he is. So for those of you out there, as Philip said, if you don't know him, it's time to get on your knees and say, Jesus, come into my life. And I know that things will be much better for you. And so this is Dr. Barbara Young signing off for God's Hookups. And be blessed. And I'll see you next week. And again, I want to thank my guest for being on the show today, because he was marvelous. And don't forget, Mr. Philip Hatfield, and you can look him up because I did. So thank you, Philip, again. So bye-bye, and I'll see you next week, same time at 11:30 with my first guest. We'll have a second guest on at 1:30 p.m. We're not going to do a 2:30 guest, but we're going to do 11:30 and a 1:30. And also, just a little bit of a plug for my new show coming on, television show called Woman Talk. And we're starting October 8th. It will be 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and till 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So those of you who are out there, hey, there's a show for women, and we're going to really, really knock it out of the ballpark. So thank you again. This is Dr. B, and I'm saying goodbye.